What I am demonstrating here on my own finger is an example of a saturation monitor. I found out yesterday that they sell these in back of the counter at all Walgreens. Isn't that an interesting phenomenon? I have been in doctors' offices that don't even have saturation monitors. I consider it one of the most important medical tools that there is on the planet. As you can see, my oxygen saturation is 98, 99%. My heart rate is 77. Those are good numbers. Now, I have tried all the various masks with this saturation monitor and found that none of them drops the saturation, including the standard paper mask. After an hour, no change in oxygen saturation. Cloth mask, after an hour, no change in oxygen saturation. Bandana type, or a gaiter on the neck, no change in saturation after 1 hour. And here, a brilliant new mask invented by the same men who invented the electrical device I previously mentioned, a mask impregnated with both activated charcoal and with ionic silver. This mask can literally be microwaved over and over and over and over, so that I can wear this all day long. I'm particularly fond of this mask when I'm seeing a lot of patients and have a crowded office. I can microwave it several times a day. And I also sometimes will add a drop of colloidal silver to my eyes and my ears when I'm seeing patients in this setting. Now, there's a lot of hype and a lot of bad press about masks. I can't breathe. I'm not getting enough oxygen, etc., etc. Well, having worn a mask through most of my surgical career, sometimes hundreds of hours a week, in a month, just hours and hours at a time, and never having had a problem wearing a mask, I can tell you that the only time it's a little bit bothersome is when we were operating in a room that had to be very, very hot because the baby was a newborn and would lose too much heat. They became a little uncomfortable, but we never stopped wearing them. We always wore masks. In some of my recent reading, I've shown you the oxygen saturation is probably fine, but what I learned from something I read recently was that if a patient has mild asthma or mild chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, emphysema, and they just tie the top tie on the mask and leave the bottom hanging, there's no dead space accumulating behind the mask. In other words, air can flow freely down. You know, your breath, your saliva goes forward, but this is vented on the bottom, so carbon dioxide does not accumulate inside this kind of a mask. I believe that it works just as well with a bandana. Carbon dioxide does not accumulate. So I posted on Facebook at least 3 months ago a picture of all these various masks. I didn't have a good response. I had very few, even family and friends, respond to those. But now that I've read more and more and more about how powerful silver is, how really you cannot get a cleaner surface than one swabbed or washed with colloidal silver or ionic silver. There's a huge international project called the Drinkable Book Project, in which the inventor produced a book, the pages of which contain nano silver, and in third world countries are distributed free. It's one of a huge charity. And each page filters 15 to 20 gallons of dirty water to American tap grade purity. That doesn't mean the water will look nice, but it won't be infectious. They won't get E. coli, Pseudomonas, cholera, all those horrible diseases that come in the third world country. So besides the Drinkable Book Project, the baby's eyes, burn treatment, and all this now available to us in the time of COVID, I strongly recommend, again, more and more and more literature. Now, some of you may be a little bit squeamish about this. When I posted my original post on all the various masks, I actually used a small mini pad. Initially, I used the whole thing. Coated it with some silver gel or liquid, doesn't matter. And that's how I wore my masks. when I went to work before the silver impregnated mask came about. I thought I was invincible against all organisms when I would walk into the office. When I originally posted on Facebook my use of all the various masks, I also included the fact that I personally often, virtually it became almost always, added a part of a mini pad or the whole mini pad and added it to the inside of the mask. Now here we are with a homemade version of a silver impregnated mask. So this obviously means that you can change this every day and not have to get new masks every day, especially if you're using cloth masks. So I found this very useful, and one can just imagine if this were cut in circles, if it were cut in little ellipses for small children. All kinds of shapes are possible, and even the issue of feminine hygiene should be considered for this. There are countless uses of silver that I've considered and thought about. Silver in the inhaled solution for cystic fibrosis children. As I said, some feminine hygiene issues, all kinds of, it's just endless, the possibilities, and I'm begging you to try some of these silver products, to collect some data, and even if you can, if you are in an academic setting and can do research, please do so. Find out what this simple solution that we know kills herpes and some other viruses and all the bacteria, see what it'll do in the time of COVID. If you have questions or want to discuss these issues or have a patient you'd like to share with, please contact me at the below email address, info@chicagotriggerpointcenter.com, care of Dr. Renee Hartz, Hartz. Thank you so much for your time.